our topic is agriculture, so really there wouldn't be any food without agriculture. So I think it's very apt before lunch to take this on. We'd also like to thank Arla for being the sponsor of this panel. I'd like to believe that we all have some Arla products in our homes, dairy products in our homes, one way or the other. So the topic for today is sustainable agriculture as a pillar to economic growth, which we can all agree to. I think the approach we're taking for today's talk is to look at, one, the climate approach to this, as well as the growth to it. So I'd like to do a very, very brief introduction to the panelists, and then we'll quickly go into the questions. So we have, can you introduce yourself quickly and give us your name? Ladi, Akoni, right? AFOS Foundation, right? AFOS Foundation. They're into capacity building and skills development, right? We have Mr. Snorri Sigurdsson from Arla, who's sponsoring our panel. And we have engineer Aiyeju, who is an alumni of AHK, in case some people do not know this. He's an agricultural specialist and skills development expert, now retired, but with us here to still share his views and skills. So I hope we all have our mics. Okay, great. So I would like to start with the most uncomfortable part as far as I'm concerned. I would like to start with the question around, the good thing is that every panelist actually comes from a different background. So we have NGO, right, foundation work, we have a private sector business, and then we have an individual who works in skills development in agriculture. And one of the things that I'd like to ask each of you is to give us your perspective from what you think the government should be doing to create a more enabling environment for agricultural growth in your perspective in the field that you're currently working in. So I'd like to start with you, Ladi, to my right. I think you have a mic, no? If not, here. Okay, okay.
Thank you very much. So from our perspective, the Nigerian government is actually doing a lot in terms of developing an enabling environment for agriculture. But one of the challenges of agriculture in Nigeria is that we really need to empower a lot of SMEs, agribusinesses, beyond even just the big established agribusinesses. So whether it be smallholder farmers or the various actors that are working alongside them across the value chain. So I think in this regard, some of the challenges may be to lift these SMEs are more directly linked to infrastructure. So providing the power, the road infrastructure, some of these things that help reduce the cost of running an SME profitably, I think is one of the ways that the government can
Thank
help.
you so much. From a business private sector perspective for Arla, what do you feel has the government done? What can the government still do to allow you to support the sector and help it grow?
There we go. Yeah, what the government is actually doing a lot of things, but for us, we are working with backward integration in Kaduna, where we are building a farm. We are building up cooperation with the local farmers, and this is about sustainability. This session. So what we are meeting there is infrastructure issues, security, and then educational levels, which is basically a bit of a hurdle for us. That's why we are having almost seminars and courses for the farmers almost on a weekly basis to train them and teach them. Because when you talk about sustainability, it's also about productivity of the land. This is a great country. You can produce almost any product you want in the whole world, that are known in the whole world, but still we import a lot of things. And that's because the land, the soil is not used properly. The breeds for milk production or for meat production are not the right ones to have high productivity and so on. So what the government should do is when it comes to us is to lift the educational level, because with education comes the knowledge about how how to use. I'm not talking about technology. I'm talking about teaching the people, not giving them fish, but teaching them to fish. And that's the key to the future.
Just to follow up, do you currently engage with the government to already have them meet you halfway to ensure these are things that are actually happening?
Yeah, we do. We have a very good cooperation with both the authorities on a country level, but also on a state level. So we meet them regularly, and we have meetings, and we do everything we can to what we can do as a cooperative, as a company owned by farmers in northern part of Europe. What we can do, but it's of course limited what we can do alone, but we can give them ideas. We are working in 180 different countries in the world, so we have a lot of experience from other countries. We have been doing development work now for over a decade in different countries, so our experience there is also valuable. So we bring in the knowledge, and that's the key. The knowledge is the key to lifting. We see it on the farmers we are working with already now. How big influence it has to increase the production of milk. We can almost they're doing a great job here. We can almost double the milk production with limited changes, and it really changes everything for the farmers. So yeah, I think that's from me now.
Thank you so much. Engineer Kane, please, let's get your inputs. I mean, working with the AHK, of course, there's a lot of government engagement that you're already doing as AHK and now yourself. So it'd be good to get a bit of perspective where you think the government should efficiently come into play.
Thank you very much, Mevis. Firstly, I'm not with AHK. I'm an alumnus of AHK. Quickly, let me just speak about government intervention perspective that will drive food security and agriculture. And the most important one is setting up new enterprises among the MSMEs along the agri value chain technologies. It is a pivotal to job creation. As you do that, a lot of youth, especially in the agri sector, which is one of the job-creating sector in this country, where we have youth unemployment of up to 40–45%. It is a pivotal intervention whereby you set up new enterprises to encourage our youth so that they will be able to get regular income. And by so doing, when they get regular income, there will be no threat to peace, there will be prosperity, and there will be development in technology along the value chain. And by so doing, agricultural waste, which is up to even 60% in some cases, will be taken off. And we'll be able to drive and avoid hunger among our youth population and the general population as a whole, and the nutritional standard of our young people, I mean underage, will be mitigated. Will be made better. Hub is created around agricultural value chain, whereby you get those youth engaged, and at the same time, government will put support into it. Some of us that are older here, we remember the time of the farm centers, actually created in the old Western states, whereby you have centers where youth were provided infrastructure to be able to set up agriculture in the rural areas. That is one approach. And another approach is doing the same thing, but now put it in the hands of the private sector, and government will put regulatory measure into it. I will give a classical example. A lot of things is being done here by GIZ, some international developmental organization, to see that such things are done. Wherever they create clusters around the geopolitical zone, and make sure that the youth of that area are able to tap from those clusters and bring about MSMEs around that place along the value chain, which will go right down to the grassroots and rural development. Apart from creating such infrastructural thing around the health issue, their road issue, the issues of them making enough income to be able to meet their challenges in terms of their health issue and sending their kids to school. By so doing in the rural area, it will become more sexier. When the rural area are improved, and again, you're able to access health and technology, good roads, then it becomes more sexier. Nobody comes to Lagos every day and not return. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sigurdsson, is there any current intervention or any way Arla is currently encouraging youth to get involved? Are you engaging a lot of youth within legal age? I'm not talking about child labor. Yeah, that you're engaging, please let us know.
I understand. This is an international issue. I've been working in over 20, I've been giving advice on agriculture in over 20 different countries in the world. It's always the same. How to get the young people to take over from the older people. The generation change on the farms is difficult. And it was actually quite well put, how to make it more sexy. It is the competition from the agriculture which has kind of a old myth around it towards the new things, going to the city, working with in Lagos or wherever you are. So how do we do it? In Europe, in the country, I come from Iceland actually, not from Denmark, but it's the education, good education on farmers' education. That means they have more likelihood for having good income because they know what they're doing. And young people today, they thrive on the money. The money needs to be the goal. Some of them are visionaries, but actually quite many are just thinking about the money. And so we need to have income enough on the farms. There was a question there was also about the federal government and the local government. We are not strong supporters of public support and giving things to people. We tried it so many times in different countries. I've seen it in my development work in Tunisia and in Indonesia and China also. You have to educate the people, you have to teach them. And if you give people too much, you don't get the full energy out of it. What we're doing now in Kaduna is actually quite interesting. We have an area, a Damao area, which is 9,000 hectares. We are developing 1,000 small farmholds. We'll have about 8 cows each, imported cows. So they will be high yielding, and then this area, 1,000 new farms will be offered to the local farmers and the young people that will apply. But it's not a gift; they have to pay it back. Nothing is the business case in this is that we promise to buy the milk for good price, fair, good, high price of milk for the milk, and then the young farmers can pay back the investment. But Kaduna's government, in cooperation with the National Bank, support it in a way, so they finance it because it's a heavy finance when you start to be a farmer, and that's basically what it's all about. How do you get them inside? It's expensive to start, but when they start, and if they can get help to start, they can slowly pay it back. So if you have a patient finance on the investment, you're well off, and that's maybe one of the ways to get the young people to attend. So I think we have come into two questions in one.
The second question was also around policies. Maybe you can actually both get on that just to see if Arla has actually been able to benefit funds from certain government, political policies that have been put in place for the benefit of the agriculture sector. Do you actually see these policies being useful? Are they being implemented? That was the question I think that the gentleman had.
Working in so many different countries, it's difficult to evaluate. The policy here regarding a company like Arla Foods, which we have our local production here in Lekki, but basically a lot of import of goods that is then produced further here. The agriculture policy have not influenced our operation in that way because we haven't been into the farming. It's only in the last 2 years, and that's up in Kaduna. So I cannot comment on that one, not for the local conditions, no, not really.
Ladi, from your experience, so yeah, of course, youth engagement, if you could comment on that, and then as well, how you've seen how farmers have perhaps or not been able to benefit from some of these, policies and interventions that the government is pushing.
From the perspective of enticing youth into agriculture, I think we can't overlook the role of technology and innovation. Whilst farming is hard work, I don't think youth of today, the smartphone generation, want to be unnecessarily involved in drudgery of maybe some of the traditional practices of farming. So I think finding a blend where technology and innovation could help could do that. I think also seeing youth, and if organizations are seeing youth as their current and future brain power and workforce and treating them as such, therefore they're investing to really upskill them and build their capacity. I think that could also be attractive as well. And I think what was also mentioned is that, thriving organizations, profitability, generating income, I think is also a way of attracting youth to the opportunities, the numerous opportunities across the multiple value chains in agriculture. I think also maybe one last thing, but maybe more related to government, is maybe trying to address the challenge of security, because whether it's a perceived notion or not, a lot of people think going into maybe more rural areas where agriculture predominantly takes place is very risky for them. So from a security perspective.
Thank you. I think the last question was regarding greenhouse. I think that was specifically for AFOS, right? Yeah, so perhaps you can answer that.
In 2 minutes,
wrap
if you
up.
can just do that in.
So for the greenhouse farming, we at the moment are not actively involved in that, only because when we have limited resources, we do try and focus where to get the most impact. And I think so far that's predominantly been smallholder farmers, which by nature they tend not to have greenhouses, and maybe the other agribusinesses as well. But greenhouse farming is potentially lucrative and maybe also possibly environmentally sustainable and efficient way of farming.
Thank you so much. So I'd like to thank the panel. I think if you have any last words of wisdom to share, that anyone would like to share, or you feel like you've expressed yourself sufficiently and efficiently. Yeah. Okay, thank you. I think, Akin?